This is John Jackson Miller, and you're listening to the Star Wars Canon Podcast. May the Force be with you.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 57 of the Star Wars Canon Podcast, an episode that I am titling The Year of Obi-Wan. Thank you for joining us to talk about our favorite thing in the world, yet again, Star Wars. And if you guys couldn't see me, but during the intro, and I do it every week, I do like air drums with the intro as it's going through to get pumped up. So we've got a little bit of a shorter episode for you this week. We got a couple mailbag questions, not a lot in the realm of news, but a lot of Obi-Wan stuff. So here to navigate all that with me is my friend and co-host, Mr. Usef Waly. How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm good. And I love that thing about the air drums that you're sort of doing, because I was imagining myself doing that the first few times I was listening to the podcast. Because it's so consistent. It makes it feel so fun.
I can't help it, man. Brook Munro did a really good job on our intro, and I don't think I've ever given him credit on the air for it, so I need to. Brook Munro, man, he's a composer that got a hold of me 4 years ago, and he shot me an email and was like, "Hey, do you want an intro for your podcast? I'm a composer. This is what I do." And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely." So
wow, that's awesome.
He sat down for, I think it was like 2 or 3 months, and
I never knew that. I never said that story before.
I never told you that. Yeah, he got a hold of me for it, and I told him, this is, because I had a 2-hour Skype call with him one night and explained to him what the podcast was, played some clips of the podcast for him. That way he kind of had an idea of what the tone was and kind of what my mission was at the time of trying to stay positive with Star Wars and all this. And so he took all of that and kind of bumped it all together and came back a couple months later and was like, "Hey, here's what I got." And he played it for me on a video call, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that is awesome." So, and he did the outro too. Awesome. Yeah, he did the intro and the outro. And so he came to me, I think last year, the year before, and was like, "Hey, do you want to just buy the rights completely to that music?" Because I was paying him a licensing fee because he owned it, and I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And so I paid him for his work, which is amazing work, by the way, and got the lifetime rights to it. So. Brook Munro, man. If you're listening to this, I hope he is too, because you do a hell of a job, man. And he's done a lot of fan projects.
Got a page or something. We ought to thank him by spreading the word out there.
We need to. Yeah,
clearly
absolutely.
A very talented person.
He's very good at what he does. But anyway, that's the intro got me pumped up tonight for some reason. But like I said, we've got a little bit of a shorter episode for you. But that's okay. We got a variety of different things to talk about, and it's not just going to all be Obi-Wan. The news probably will be, but mailbag questions won't all be Obi-Wan. So let's get started. So before we get into all of the news, let's talk about 1138productions.com a little bit. That website is now live. I think it looks pretty good. We've got this show on that podcast, or on that website. We've got the Marvel cast on that website. Several timelines are available now. The Star Wars Canon timeline, the Legends timeline, the Halo timeline. I've started a little bit of a framework for an Assassin's Creed timeline. I'm going to need your help, Usef, on this, because it's way more complicated than I thought it was going to be.
I love Assassin's Creed.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, speaking of Assassin's Creed, I just walked in from work. We're sitting down to record this. I just walked in from work, but I had an Amazon package waiting on me that I brought down with me. And I finally went back and bought the Ezio Collection, Assassin's Creed 3 with Liberation. I got Black Flag, and I got Rogue Remastered, all on PS4 now. So
awesome!
I already had them all.
Rogue, by the way.
I already had them all on Xbox 360, but I wanted to be able to stream them for 1138 Gaming. So I went back and just bought them all on PS4. So I just put them on the shelf, and they all look so good on the shelf together. For PS4. But there's also going to be, a Star Trek timeline on there as well. And we're going to start putting together a Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline for it also. All of that can be found on the website at 1138productions.com. And the other thing I wanted to bring up real quick was I have been doing 1138 Gaming. I usually shoot for Monday and Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Those are the two nights I guarantee I'm going to be on, but I've been streaming every night. Like I've been playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm addicted to this game. It's so good. Tonight after we get done recording, I'm probably going to stream Assassin's Creed 2 for a little while. We're gonna hop into that too. So keep an eye out for all of that on the YouTube channel for 1138 Productions.
It's an absolute classic game.
I've been wanting to go back for a while and play the old Assassin's Creed games because I'm like halfway. Well, I finished Valhalla's story mission, but now I'm just doing all the extra world stuff, which is very tedious. I'm dual wielding Mjolnir and Excalibur like a badass, and nice. I'm wearing Thor's armor like a badass. But I'm wanting to go back and kind of. There's a couple of Assassin's Creed games I never 100%ed. I never 100%ed Odyssey. I haven't.
I 100% that. I was amazing.
I can't believe that's insane. I haven't 100%ed
like all the trophies
Valhalla yet.
DLC,
yeah. How do you? Jesus, I'm going to this time though when we do this.
Nice.
Unity and Syndicate. I think I just kind of buzzed through the story and never really did anything else.
Oh yeah, same. I mean, Syndicate was fun with the Unity anyway. Unity was really kind of stale. In my opinion. It kind of was. I mean, I loved the possibilities of it, but it still felt stale. It felt incomplete.
Yeah. So this time I think I'm gonna, as we go back, I'm gonna 100% all of these because the PS4 version of the Ezio trilogy doesn't have all the multiplayer stuff in it. So we'll be able to just buzz through the story and finish all the worlds because I'm wanting to do all the DLC for all the games, everything like that also. So guys, go check out 1138 Gaming. It's on our YouTube channel for 1138 Productions. And like I said, I go live Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 Central. So come hang out with me. Let's talk about whatever you guys want to talk about while I'm streaming. You guys can watch me get my ass kicked by these machines as we go. So that'll do it for all the housekeeping. Let's get into the news. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of news. And I think everything we're talking about is Obi-Wan related. It seems like the last several episodes has been nothing but Obi-Wan. We ought to turn this into a drinking game where every time we say the word Obi-Wan or Kenobi, we have to take a shot, and we wouldn't make it through the episode. So tonight we've got a couple things we wanted to talk about. There was a rumor going around for a while last week until it was confirmed to be bogus, was that Darth Maul was going to be the antagonist in the Obi-Wan trilogy, or in the Obi-Wan series, until Dave Filoni stepped in and was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, now we know that rumor is bogus, and they came out and said, no, that was never the case. So I don't even know where the rumor came from, but would it have made sense to you, Usef, if Obi-Wan had popped up? Because in my mind, in Rebels, Maul didn't even know Kenobi was still alive.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when he finally found out where he was,
it was a revelation in itself.
Yeah, he tracked him down to Tatooine, and that's where they had their final moments. And so I don't know if it would have made sense for him to find Kenobi in this series unless Kenobi wasn't on Tatooine, unless he was on this new planet and Maul came across him and then something happened and Obi-Wan faked his death or something and Maul thought he was dead. And then he come to find out later, he lives, and I don't know. So what do you think? Like, do you think that would have made any sense? As cool as it would have been to see, do you think it would have made any sense narrative-wise?
Yeah, I think you just said it. And my opinion is both these points. So firstly, it would have been really cool, but it just doesn't make sense because we've seen this once already in Rebels. So I wouldn't want to see it twice. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And also, if it was just here for a filler, I mean, come on, we don't want filler episodes in Obi-Wan. We really want to. Yeah, so I don't need to revisit anything we've technically already explored. And I know, by the way, Disney might look at this in another way, or Lucasfilm might look at this in another way, and the idea that, well, the Obi-Wan show, definitely everybody's going to watch that. And really, how many people have watched Rebels? You know, I've only just got around to watching Rebels. And watching stuff. So people who will not have seen any of that, people who will not have seen Clone Wars, people who won't have seen any of that, they will watch Obi-Wan. People who won't even have seen Mandalorian will watch Obi-Wan. You know, like I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are just sticking to the movies and aren't really in tune with the shows and stuff. They'll be like, okay, if an Obi-Wan show is coming out, I want to see that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm pretty sure there is a demographic which sees that. So they might want to revisit Maul at least maybe as a memory, maybe as something, maybe as whatever. But I hope they don't. I hope it's not included.
Oh no, I didn't think of that because I think that'd be a cool idea actually with the memory thing with flashbacks because I think we basically know at this point we're going to be getting flashbacks in this series.
Right, exactly.
Because there's been talk with with Ewan McGregor with Entertainment Weekly talking about how when they were on set, there's Hayden and he's Anakin again, and I'm Obi-Wan again, and it's like,
right.
So is that like a Freudian slip? Like, are we actually getting flashback scenes to Clone Wars?
I think we're getting.
God,
I
I'd
personally
love
would
that.
predict that we're getting both flashback scenes to Clone Wars, things that might have seemed. You know what really gets me excited is when we saw that cover of the novel of Padawan, which is Anakin, young Anakin or younger Anakin.
Oh, Brotherhood.
Being
the novel. This is the cover for Brotherhood.
Padawan,
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Brotherhood. Excuse me, not Padawan, because Padawan is Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
With Qui-Gon. Yeah. So Brotherhood. When I saw that cover for that novel coming out, that looked awesome, and I want to see that live action.
Yes.
So I want to basically see more of episode 2 and 3. You know what I mean? Of Obi-Wan and Anakin in that phase. I think we're definitely going to see that, at least a flashback to that. And then we would also see potentially Ray Park coming in
as
sort
Maul.
of a little bit of a cameo.
Yeah. That's where I was going with the flashback thing, because. Yeah, to see a flashback of Maul pop up, like, oh god, that'd be so cool to see. Oh god,
I love that Ray Park is an insanely good martial artist to this day. Like, he never stopped.
Oh yeah, he's ridiculous, and in a good way. In a good way.
In a great way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's cool how because they did it for Solo too with Maul, how they filmed him to do the physical stuff, but then they got Sam Witwer to come in to do the voice. The Sam Witwer who did Clone Wars and Rebels did the voice for Maul.
Right.
And also in Legends he was Starkiller. But yeah, I think it's awesome.
If anybody's wondering, by the way, the whole flipping sort of jumping around thing, that's not strictly in the martial art. He added that on purpose for the flourish, but it is still part of the discipline called Wushu. And it is amazing Wushu martial art. Like it's next level. Like you are not. Is this beyond Kung Fu?
Oh, the guy's a beast. The guy's a beast.
Yeah.
If I'm ever in the same bar he's in and there's a bar fight, I'm on his side. I don't care who he's fighting. I'm on his side. So, but yeah, no, I think it'd be cool to see Maul pop up in some flashbacks, but not as the main antagonist for the show. I think Vader makes more sense. Honest to God, here's what I see happening, and I don't know this. I don't have any insider information. Obviously, I'm a nobody. So, honestly, what I see happening is Obi-Wan's chilling on Tatooine, and he finds out, or he sees a propaganda broadcast or something of Vader, and realizes that Vader is still alive, and realizes I still have a chance, because maybe he thought Vader was dead, that he left Anakin for dead on Mustafar, and I still have a chance to save him. So maybe that's when he goes to look at Luke one more time to make sure he's okay, like we see in the trailer. And he's like, yeah, Luke will be fine. I'm heading off planet for a little while. And then as he's tracking Vader down, the Inquisitors are trying to track him down. And I think that's what it's going to end up being, is coming down to the confrontation with Obi-Wan, trying to turn Vader one last time.
I am hoping that there's a season 2 where that happens, even if it's a very short season 2.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the main antagonist in season 1 is going to be something which hasn't been explored that much, the Inquisitors. And I think that, I would hope that I see a lot more of these Inquisitors, because they haven't been given enough weight except in the comics, and we saw them a little bit in the video game. Well, I'm talking about the mainstream stuff.
Right.
The video game as well, in Jedi Fallen Order, with Cal Kestis versus, what was her name? Trilla, right?
Yeah, Trilla,
So, the Inquisitors look awesome. They just need to get their piece, sort of thing. They need to get their credit, because they need some more screen time. They need some more emphasis on them, because they're amazing, trained in the Sith, but not really given everything. They're just being a little bit of Force users. The lightsabers are used as a sort of weapon of torment and fear, rather than anything else. Oh, look at them wielding them red lightsabers and stuff, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's going to be scary as hell. I think they're going to be potentially the main antagonists, with Vader and potentially Sidious being a boss level sort of thing. Well, Sidious. Last episode we talked about Sidious potentially. Well, I talked about Sidious potentially being his mind, his powers sort of linking them together or doing something through the Force. That would be amazing. But yeah, when we heard rumors about this thing, well, not rumors. So this thing about potentially being a season 2 in Disney, Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm them basically saying that they would love to have more content. It's just a matter of if it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly they're open to it if they're saying something like that.
Oh yeah,
and I hope they do it.
I hope they do a season 2. I've got because that was another one of the things I wanted to talk about this episode was Kathleen Kennedy. I guess made some comments talking about a possible season 2, and I've got the article pulled up here about what she actually said. The director of Obi-Wan, Deborah Chow, says it, referring to Obi-Wan Kenobi, was definitely conceived as a limited series, and it is one big story with a beginning, middle, and end, which that excites the shit out of me. She goes on to say the approach has always been that it is one full story. Somebody asked Kathleen Kennedy about possibly doing a season 2, and she went on record to say it's certainly something we talk about, mainly because everybody came together and had such an incredible time. Ewan had an incredible time, Hayden had an incredible time, so certainly from that point of view, everybody involved would love to see this not end, but we have to really spend our time asking the question, why would we do it? If we were to decide to do anything more with the Obi-Wan character, we'd have to really answer the question, why? And I'm actually, as much as I'd kill to see a season 2 of this, I like that reasoning. I really like the fact that she's even saying that, because, you know, how many times do you see a film come out that is a blockbuster that everybody loves, great story, right? And then it makes so much money.
The spinoff or the sequel.
And then it just drives it into the ground, and it's like, are you serious? You know, so yeah, I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm relieved that she has that mentality with it. As much as I would love to see it, you know, another season.
Yeah, only if it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and I'll be grateful for what we get, but a season 2 for Obi-Wan. What could it possibly be? You know?
Wisdom. That shows they've learned their lesson from the sequel trilogy.
I think so. You know, and you know, we've talked about the sequel films quite often on this podcast, and kind of what we thought our issues with them were and everything. But yeah, I think they've learned. I think you're right. I think they've seen. It's not that I think they've learned from their mistakes. I think they've learned how to navigate the fandom, I think, is what they've figured out. Yeah, more than anything. I think they've figured out how to navigate the fandom. So, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is it's kind of a non-story, to be honest. I'm not shocked by this at all. The article I read said this may be spoilery, but I don't see how this is spoilery at all. But there's reports now that Anchorhead is going to be making an appearance in the Obi-Wan series. I think that's a non-story, to be honest. I think that's pretty much a given. We've never seen Anchorhead in Star Wars canon. The only time we've ever seen Anchorhead at all was in Legends, or I shouldn't say at all in Legends, but the only time we've seen it, like physically laid eyes on, I think was Knights of the Old Republic. When you land on Tatooine, I think you're on. I think you're in Anchorhead. But to be able to see it for the first time, and honestly, I got mad at first when I read the article, and then I had to calm down because my first thought was, well, we did see it in the deleted scenes for A New Hope, but that was Tashi Station, not Anchorhead. So Anchorhead's been mentioned in Book of Boba Fett when he told the Pikes, walk that way, you can make Anchorhead by sundown, whatever. So I think it'd be cool to see it. Show us some new towns on Tatooine other than Mos Eisley and Mos Espa. For the love of God, show us something different. There's more than one town on Tatooine. Let's see Anchorhead, because Anchorhead's supposed to be this massive spaceport, you know, bigger than Mos Eisley. You know, like it's supposed to be this big capital. So I think it's going to be cool to see. Where are you at, Usef? I'm like I said, I think this is a non-story, and I think it's a given. What do you think?
Stuff like that, I'm just really cautious with. I mean, I also saw the stuff which I shared earlier about what there's rumors about Samuel L. Jackson as well being talked to about Mace Windu stuff. Right. Same stuff, right? So we're going to keep hearing this stuff until it's confirmed. Right. You know, speculation is speculation, and you can hear it till the cows go home, as you say over in America,
in Kansas, you know, here in Kansas,
yeah, over there in Kansas, good sir, with your briskets and your longhorns and all that. Yeah,
ooh, you said that, brisket. Ooh.
Yeah, I had some today. The thing is,
that's word porn over here, man.
Oh, man, I loved it. I loved the pastrami brisket and stuff.
God, it looked good too. You sent me that video. I was like, oh. I was at work. I opened my phone and it said Usef sent a video, and I was like, oh. And then to top it off, you're in Egypt and you hear Brooks and Dunn, Boot Scootin' Boogie playing in the background of that video, and I'm just like, yeah. So yeah, no, that's word porn over here. But yeah, we can take it with a grain of salt. All the
exactly
all the little rumors and reports that are coming out. But yeah, I think the Anchorhead thing is a non-story at this point. I think it's just a given that it's going to be there. So that's basically going to do it in the world of news. There really hasn't been anything else that dropped in the last week. Watch some big news story will drop between now and Saturday. It's usually the way it works. But that'll do it for the news this week. Let's get into this weekly villain bracket that Usef started. Usef, do you want to explain how this works?
I'd love to. If you listened to last week's podcast, you would know that I am a huge fan of villains in any franchise, really, or any story, period. Whether it's a book, a novel, a TV show, a video game, anything. The hero is only as good as the villain. That's genuinely my perspective on things. And one of the reasons that got me so stuck into Star Wars and in love with it was just how serious the villains were. This whole concept of Jedi versus Sith, or the Force users, light versus dark, or what you could do with power, sort of thing. So it's really this, even way back when I was a child, sort of reading about Merlin, the wizard in King Arthur. And he was taking on the witch, and what you do with this power, how you do it for good, you do it for bad, you become a dictator, do you become a warlord, do you become a hero, do you help the needy, do you help, all of this stuff goes back to being superheroes, everything. Villains is just my thing. I just love it. So Star Wars, we wanted to do a little bit of a twist on things. Rather than think about which villains are the strongest or the most powerful or the most brutish, we wanted to talk about which villains are the coolest. So we wanted to really think, who is the coolest villain? Which villain would you really want to be, you want to emulate? Which one do you think you're looking over there, looking at him with his swag, sort of moving over there? He's not necessarily the most powerful, but he's like, oh, crap, look at him get away with that stuff. It's kind of like, James Bond, sort of suave, whatever. Even if you think James Bond, even if you think he's not really sort of your traditional hero, whatever, he's just got that cool swag thing about him. So it's that kind of thing where we thought that it was not just a funny concept, but something that we actually had we all enjoyed just thinking about or talking about. So we've divided them into categories. Now the categories which we have here, which we'll be going through certain villains listed in the categories, and I'll give you examples as we go along. So the first category, for example, is going to be Sith Lords. And so that, of course, will include Darth Plagueis, Darth Sidious, Darth Bane, etc. Miscellaneous Force users such as Savage Opress and Mother Talzin, military figures like General Hux and Tarkin, Moff Gideon, Thrawn, bounty hunters like Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Fennec Shand, Cad Bane, some droids in there as well, IG-11, IG-88. General Assholes is going to be the last the one I'll mention, and it's the one that we're talking about last week and this week. So I'll tell you everyone who's on the General Assholes category. Just love that label.
I do. I do too.
Jay
Thanks,
that.
Jay. Yeah.
We just love that. We all love that.
I'm surrounded by assholes. I'm gonna have to like next week when we do our last bracket for this group, we're gonna have to get that soundbite.
We can even put it on our video.
We're gonna have to.
We'll post that all over social media.
Surrounded by assholes.
Social media for like once a week or something regularly. So we had. So what we're doing here is within each category, we're going to have villains in this category face off against each other, right? So it's going to be one-on-one, each villain against the other, so that we come up with finalists in each category. So here are all of the candidates in the General Assholes category. We've got Drain Voss, Sebulba, Jabba the Hutt, Newt Gunray, and Hondo and Watto. Last week on our episode, we debuted with we randomly select these, by the way, so we don't choose who comes up against who. There's no point system. Mm-hmm. We try to be unbiased. We try to make this as random as possible, but still within the categories first. So Hondo got drawn up against Watto, and I believe Brian has the results on that.
Oh, Hondo won that.
I think it was
Hondo won that by a landslide.
This is overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't remember who Hondo and Watto were, and if you haven't really watched Clone Wars or TV shows, you won't know really who Hondo is. But yeah, Hondo is an incredibly cool sort of. He's a mercenary slash dealer slash spare parts dealer slash wheeler dealer, roaming around the galaxy. Sometimes he collects. I mean, he's not a bounty hunter, but sometimes he collects people and does a few tasks just to get some money's worth. Sometimes he'll intervene and do some business with the Empire. Sometimes he'll sell weapons to, excuse me, there was an Empire back then. But yeah, sometimes he'll sell weapons to the Separatists. Sometimes he'll do stuff. Yeah, sometimes he'll do stuff with the Jedi, like broker deals and stuff. He's just a sleazeball.
Tries to hold Obi-Wan, really Anakin, cool. and Dooku for hostage.
Oh yeah,
for ransom. Yeah.
Absolutely. And he is one of the funniest, coolest cats. Like,
I love that guy.
Hondo, he's got this accent, right? You can't really put your finger on it. It's not Rasta, it's not Jamaican, it's not Eastern European. It's some sort of weird Hondo cool vibe. Him and his goggles is really cool. So it was fun to see everyone just love him. And there were a few people who supported Watto a little bit as well. I think they did it just out of pity. Because
he was getting his ass kicked.
So Watto, the reason why Watto's on this list in the first place, like why he's worth it. So firstly, Watto's got wings, and he's really cool. One of the reasons that made me really like Watto, he's a hard-headed trader. I can't really fault him much for owning a slave like Anakin or whichever other slaves, because that's just the way of the world over there. It's just the way he is. So that's part of him, the reasons why he is an asshole. But he's so clever, so smart. He's just one of those things. He's really hard-headed. Qui-Gon Jinn as a Jedi, as a masterful Jedi, tried to influence him with the Force, and it didn't work because this guy's just really dead set on making cash and living through the desert in such a harsh damn environment. He's worth being on this list, but yeah, he seems to be the runt of this list. So that's one bracket done. So Hondo, Watto's been eliminated, and Hondo's gotten this seat.
Hondo's moving on. Yep.
Yeah, so we've got four guys left over here. So Brian, do we have that? I forgot to ask you this before we started, but do we have the random selector?
I've got it. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we've got Sebulba, Dryden Voss, Newt Gunray, and Jabba the Hutt left. So we are randomly selecting the next two for the bracket. Here we go. Let's just go and get her over with. And first up this week is going to be Sebulba. Let's see who Sebulba is going up against.
Nice applause over there.
I don't know, right? Isn't that awesome? All right, and then we're going to spin again. Let's see who Sebulba is going up against. Sebulba is going up against, well, that seems appropriate, Newt Gunray.
Right.
Newt Gunray. All right, so that's our
next bracket.
That's our bracket for this week. It's going to be Sebulba versus Newt Gunray, and we're going to see who is the cooler of the two characters. I'm pretty sure I know how that one's going to go too. But I could be wrong.
So
I could
like
be wrong.
Both. I mean, we could talk about a little bit about both.
Oh shit!
They both debuted in the same.
The wheel again. There we go.
In the same film. That's fine. They both debuted in the same film.
Yeah.
In Phantom Menace in Star Wars Episode 1, and Newt Gunray, I believe he doesn't actually go away until like Episode 3, right?
Yeah,
Anakin. When Darth Vader.
Yeah,
Vader.
Well, Vader shish kebabs him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's over. Yeah, he's yeah. So Sebulba is a really hard-headed. He's quite a badass. He's quite a gangster type guy. He's clearly like into spare parts and ships and stuff, and he's got an entourage around him all the time. And he's racing, so that's how we meet him. Exactly. So we meet him, kicking the shit out of
out of Little Annie.
Out of Jar Jar Binks and Little Annie. And Annie stands up to him, and it's very clear that he's sort of like a lesser boss, so to speak. And he does a great job, by the way, of introducing us to this thing where, this is a huge, wide world over here. Because up until Episode 1, I mean, Episodes 4, 5, and 6, we hadn't really seen much of the world of Star Wars, of the galaxy, of the universe of Star Wars, other than, for example, the canteen, right? The canteen. Mm-hmm. And then we'd seen other planets have different types of aliens, like the Ewoks and stuff, obviously, but then other aliens that were on base camps and stuff. But even then, there weren't really that much. So for us to get this view of Mos Eisley and then Sebulba up here and the way he talks and these different languages that he speaks,
right?
I'll always have this cool impression of him, genuinely, like a genuinely cool impression of him, because just because of the way he was introduced and how he was one of the first to really get introduced in this way. And then Newt Gunray, so he is the Trade Federation, one of the Trade Federation leaders. Do you guys remember that huge sort of donut-shaped ship up in the space above Naboo? And, you know, they were the ones sort of worried about Jedi showing up, and they were doing the deal with Darth Sidious, you know, the Sith Lords on the side. And
now there are two of them.
And this is getting off of hand. So this sort of fake Asian accent, by the way, which wasn't very nice when I heard it the first time.
That was incredibly racist back then. It still is, but yeah, it was incredibly racist.
Even now it was. Like,
yeah.
Like, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. I mean, it was funny, but I was, even back then being a child, I was like, what the hell's going on here? Like,
you know what's even funnier about that? I just thought of this. Like, when you watch Newt Gunray talk, his lips don't match what he's saying, so it's like the old Godzilla films. You see him talking in, you know, Japanese, and he's like, Godzilla! But you could tell they're blatantly not saying Godzilla.
Exactly.
You're right. It was incredibly, yeah.
It was just weird, yeah.
It was weird.
So Newt, you know, he's one of those things. He's a character, right? So he is a character, and he technically is important. So I mean, I know he doesn't seem that important, but in episodes 1 and 2, especially,
he was funny.
You know, when he comes out, he was, yeah.
He was. He's like, she can't do that. Shoot her or something.
Because technically, he's one of these politicians orchestrating a civil war. So he's a diplomat. He's a traitor. He's obviously a billionaire.
Right.
He's making these deals. And then if you've seen Clone Wars, you will see just how important the Trade Federation can be.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
massive. And
yeah, I've never
seen the banking system and everything. Oh, man, like he's
I've never seen a corporation that had a seat on a Senate.
On a parliament or Senate or something.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
He's
like,
that big.
yeah.
He's that big. Exactly.
So.
Oh, and then if you've read novels, so if you've read something like Tarkin or Lost Stars or stuff, and then you see these corporations, what they do to these different planets, they suck them dry,
drain them of resources. Yeah.
Exactly. You then, first and foremost, if you haven't read these novels, like me, when you haven't, and then you start getting into them, and you see these details and the effort the writers put into these novels, building up these corporations. Oh my goodness, it just adds another dimension.
Yeah.
It shows you how much effort is put into world building in Star Wars. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Goodness. Seriously. So that's why genuinely I cannot stress enough why the Trade Federation is actually really important, and Newt Gunray is actually quite important. And that makes him quite cool in my books. I mean, imagine a very evil you know, Elon Musk-esque sort of thing where he's on the Senate.
Oh,
he's
that's
in
a good
Congress.
Yeah.
Maybe not Elon Musk himself. I don't have anything against the guy. Like, I'm just trying to think of a famous person who's sort of
who's got that much power.
On Jeff Bezos for whatever. I don't mean to be political or anything.
Oh no, that's the better simile.
Yeah, so
that's
like
the better
Bezos,
one. Yeah,
like somebody who you just don't like. So someone who's willing, you know, like Alibaba.com in China or something.
Yeah,
you know, something that huge, right? Something that huge that can potentially put its fingers in everything.
Yeah.
You know,
now picture
now
picture Amazon having a seat in the U.S. Senate.
Right.
like that's what's going on. That's how powerful he is.
And then so they'll have logistics centers here in Egypt, which they actually do, and then they'll do that in a port in Dubai, and then Singapore, and China, and U.S., and Canada, and Russia, and South Africa, and Brazil, and in Argentina. And so every single continent, Australia, every single continent they'll have a huge base, and then technically they can sort of manifest themselves and perhaps even start a civil war somewhere so that Kenya might stable down, or Somalia or something. Maybe then they get less pirates, or maybe they'd get more pirates. So then they stop other shipping companies from delivering their products. So only Amazon gets the product. whatever. Like, this is just obviously a really fake example. I swear.
But it's a good one though, because it's really good. It's a really good one.
Buying Kindles and stuff, and I love Amazon, so I have nothing against Amazon Jiffies. Just make that clear.
But you're right. The caliber of the company and of the people, it's the same. So.
Right.
But so basically imagine Jimmy Hoffa going up against Jeff Bezos right now. That's kind of the way, or a bully. Who would be a good bully? I don't know. But anyway.
Wait, so I think Sebulba would be, you remember how, I'm not really well versed in this, but
okay.
I know Carroll Shelby's an amazing pioneer. He's a great guy. Imagine a mix between Hoffa and Carroll Shelby.
Oh, yeah.
You know
yeah.
I mean?
No, that'd be
yeah. Yeah. So Shelby, he's amazing. He's a pioneer. He's brilliant. Especially, I love that latest film which came out, for Ford versus Ferrari as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't mean it in a bad way either, guys. I'm just trying to give examples here. So it's just the thing that Sebulba, he's also this sort of like real local gangster type guy.
Yeah.
So hope I didn't drag on that.
No. You're good.
Because sometimes people don't really understand why we included it in the assholes list to begin with. But yeah, these characters do have influence in the story of Star Wars.
They do.
Otherwise, we wouldn't really care about putting them on here.
Yeah. So this week it is against Sebulba and Newt Gunray. We're going to put up on the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and the Twitter feed. These are your candidates for this week to vote for. You guys can vote more than once if you want. You just have to go to all three places to vote more than once. And next week we'll find out who the winner is, and we will discuss that. And then I think it's pretty obvious who we're picking next week. Next week it's going to be Dryden Voss versus Jabba the Hutt, which will be a really cool one. Actually, considering they're both crime lords, I think that actually worked out really well. So
that's actually really cool.
It is cool how that kind of worked out, isn't it?
And we'll introduce them a little bit more next week. I think you guys know who they are, but we'll talk about them a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. So head over to our Facebook page, to the Twitter account, and on the YouTube channel. All the links for that will be in the description of this podcast, where you guys can go and vote, make your voices heard, and go check it out. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So before we get into upcoming canon, let's talk about some of the canon that came out this week. A couple pieces. The High Republic Tempest Runner script, which was Tempest Runner was an audio drama that was really good, by the way. It followed Lorna D. It finally got its hardback script edition, its book edition, hardcover, whatever you want to call it. It finally came out this past week. And then in the world of comics, we got Halcyon Legacy #2. It just came out on Wednesday. Upcoming canon for novels, we've got Queen's Hope by E.K. Johnston coming out on April 5th. Brotherhood by Mike Chen on May 10th. Stories of Jedi and Sith, June 7th. Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. That's coming out on June 28th. That one can't get here quick enough as far as I'm concerned. Padawan by Kirsten White, July 26th. The Princess and the Scoundrel by Beth Revis is coming out on August 16th. Star Wars Insider Fiction Collection, The High Republic Volume 1, is coming out on October 4th. That's the collection of all of the Star Wars Insider short stories that were exclusive to that magazine. They're releasing them in an omnibus for all of us non-subscribers to that magazine. The High Republic Convergence, kicking off Phase 2 of The High Republic by Zoraida Cordova, comes out on October 4th. The High Republic Quest for the Hidden City by George Mann comes out on October 4th. Hunters, Battle for the Arena by Mark Oshiro, November 1st. And I think that's going to tie into the mobile game that's coming, or I think the Nintendo Switch game that's coming out, the Hunters game. And then on November 1st, we've also got The High Republic, Path of Deceit by Justina Ireland and Tessa Groton. Those are your novels coming out that we know of so far. Comics, I'm only doing comics about a month out for upcoming canon because these dates change so often. Matter of fact, Dr. Aphra number 19 was on last week's list. It was supposed to come out this past week, but they pushed it back to the 23rd. Darth Vader number 21 is on the 23rd of March. Bounty Hunters 21 is coming out on March 30th. Bounty Hunters number 22, April 6th. Also on April 6th is Star Wars number 22. And then on April 13th, we've got Crimson Reign number 4, Halcyon Legacy number 3, and Star Wars number 22. So that is what your upcoming canon looks like for right now. A lot of it. What I find interesting is people who talk about how there's not a lot of Star Wars canon. There's way more than you think there is. There's a lot of it out there. And granted, we're nowhere near where the EU was in the level of novels yet, because there's like 250 some novels, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're coming up close in the 60s or 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So, we are going to get into mailbag questions for this week. So, how do you guys get a question on the Star Wars Canon Podcast? You can email it to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com, or you can visit us at 1138productions/contact, and you can send in a question there. I've got 2 official questions that we want to address, and there's a third question that we got that I was going to answer, and then I talked to the guys at 1138, and they were like, I don't know if I would really touch it or not. We all know. But upon talking to Usef, I think we've come up with a way where we're still going to kind of broach the subject a little bit, but we're the reason we're kind of leery about it is the nature of the question. Kind of the attitude behind the question, I guess you could say. It was exactly. It was pretty aggressive. That was the way Usef described it. It was a little aggressive. So I don't want to.
And that is genuinely my only problem, because the issue being raised is a fair point.
It's a good question. Yeah, it's just had it been presented a little bit, a little more polished. You know what I mean? Exactly. I think we would have went ahead and said who sent, but I'm not going to say the name of who sent it or anything. But basically, we wanted to talk about this question before we got into the mailbag questions, and just kind of talk about it a little bit, and kind of, I guess, clear up any confusion that there might be, because apparently there is a little bit of confusion somewhere. But this person sent in an email basically talking about how they believed that the Star Wars Expanded Universe, which is now Legends, is the one and true canon, that is exactly what happened. Everything that's come out since then is glorified fan fiction, and basically we are just feeding into it and making it worse by talking about it having a podcast dedicated to it and by supporting it. And so we didn't really want to put the person's name out there. We didn't want to, cause any backlash against them. But I think it's something we need to talk about. We've talked about on this podcast before what is and isn't canon, and I get that there are people out there that really love the expanded universe, the Legends stuff. I totally get it. But it's something, and don't get me wrong, I wish that Lucasfilm would continue to produce that material for that audience, because there's obviously a market for it. There's obviously an audience for it. So I do think they need to keep continuing those stories. There's really good stories there, some good characters that I know people love. So I first off, I'm not against them ever say, if they come out tomorrow and say we're going to continue Legends, we're going to keep doing this timeline with, say Mara Jade and the Solo twins, or and all that. Awesome, cool, more power to you. That's
exactly right. It adds a full dimension, so I'd be happy to see that.
It does, and to be fair, there is still stuff that's coming out that is not canon. The Visions animations were not canon. The novel Ronin was not canon. I don't really want to say that it's actually in the Legends timeline either, because it's kind of its own thing, from what I've heard. But I still think that, for the record, before we start explaining this, because I feel like we have to explain it one more time. I'm totally for them to continue producing this timeline. You know what I'm saying? But in the email that they made it a point to say George Lucas considered the EU to be canon to his films. And so I wanted to address this, because this is a big misconception. I'm not trying to prove anybody right. I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong. I'm just trying to put the truth out there and to put out what has been said, what has been stated on the record, so that we all know as a community what is and isn't. You guys can still enjoy your Legend stuff. I totally get it. I get you guys love it, and I'm not going to take that from you. I'd never want to. But we've got several different clips saying, that what is and isn't canon. And actually, Dave Filoni was on the Star Wars show. Oh God, I don't know how long ago it was now. But the subject was broached with him. So I'm gonna play a clip from that interview real quick for you guys.
There's this notion that everything changed and when everything became Legends, and I can see why people think that. But, having worked with George, I can tell you that it was always very clear, and he made it very clear, that the films and the TV shows were the only thing that he considered canon. That was it. Mm-hmm. So everything else was a world of fun ideas, exciting characters, great possibilities. But the EU was created to explore all those things. And I know, and I fully respect people's opinion about it, that some of the material said the next canon part of it, okay. But like from the filmmaking world that I was brought into, the TV series, the films were it. Mm-hmm. They were set in stone. So it was not a big change for me when everyone was saying everything's legend status now. I'm like, yeah, that's what I've always understood. It's all legend status.
So that's straight from Dave Filoni's mouth.
That was really cool.
And for being such a short explanation, it had everything you needed in it. Like that was the best explanation I could have possibly found. You know what I mean? But I'll go one further. Because some people might say, well, he's hired by Disney to say that. Oh, that's fair enough. You may have that argument. But let's take it to the top notch, all right? So let's go to the maker himself, George Lucas. He on 3 separate occasions, he has been he's been recorded on the record talking about this exact subject. And I want to read all 3 of his quotes because there's 3 separate magazines, 3 separate interviews where he had quotes talking about this. The first one was Cinescape in July of 2001. His exact words were, quote, "There are 2 worlds here. There's my world, which is the movies, and there's the other world, this other world that has been created, which I say is the parallel universe, the licensing world of the books, games, and comic books." That's what was said in 2001. In August of 2005, in a magazine called Starlog, he was quoted in saying, quote, "I don't read that stuff. I haven't read any of the novels. I don't know anything about that world. That's a different world than my world, but I do try to keep it consistent. The way I do it now is they have a Star Wars encyclopedia, so if I come up with a name or something else, I look it up and see if it has already been used. When I said other people can make their own Star Wars stories, we decided that, like Star Trek, we would have 2 universes, my universe and then this other one. They try to make their universe as consistent with mine as possible, but obviously they get enthusiastic and want to go off in other directions." That is directly from George Lucas. It's kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Marvel. I think I'm going to open up a can of worms saying this. It's kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Marvel, how the films don't consider Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. canon, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. considers themselves canon, and so they make their show around the films, but the films just don't even pay attention to the show. And it's not for all the shows; it's just for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But that's George Lucas's quote in 2005, and then later on in May of 2007, for Total Film, he was when he says Howard, he's referring to Howard Rothman, who was the president of Lucas Licensing at the time, about the books and the comics and everything like that. So his quote says, "Howard tries to be consistent, but sometimes he goes off on tangents, and it's hard to hold him back. He once said to me that there are 2 Star Trek universes. There's the TV show, and then there's all the spinoffs. He said that these were completely different and didn't have anything to do with each other. So I said, okay, go ahead." So when Lucas agreed to all of these books and everything being published, that was the agreement, was that they would be in their own like parallel timeline. So they weren't actually considered canon. I don't know why everybody keeps thinking that all of the old EU stuff was canon, because even George Lucas himself did not consider it to be canon. There's several references in EU. I haven't read all of it. I've read a chunk of it, but I've never read all of it. There are things that are mentioned in the EU that blatantly flies in the face of the films that Lucas made after these books came out, like Heir to the Empire, talking about the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars that were talked about in Heir to the Empire are a completely different kind of Clone Wars than what we got in the prequels. Those there were literal clones of Jedi in the Heir to the Empire version of Clone Wars, and then when the films came out, they were obviously not the case. So Lucas didn't believe that they were canon. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that those aren't great stories and that they couldn't be that couldn't be a good timeline for the Star Wars universe. It very well could be. But at the Canon Podcast, we focus on what is legally considered canon. You know what I'm saying? So and the person who wrote this email, if you're listening, I don't know if you are or not, had you worded your email maybe not so aggressively, we would have been more than happy to read your name, read your email, and let you present your point. But instead, because of the nature of the email, we just kind of wanted to touch on it a little bit and then move on. So, Usef, did you have anything you wanted to add concerning canon?
Pretty much said everything that
I didn't mean to leave you in the dust there, buddy.
No. You did nothing of the sort. You did pretty much said everything that needs to be said, because the only thing I would add is since day one of this podcast, Brian, since even before I was listening to it, since we joined, the reason why we were able to see eye to eye is because we want this to be an environment where everyone, go ahead, read whatever it is you want to read. Right. Enjoy content. If you like something, don't listen to anyone else tell you to not like it.
Absolutely, yeah.
We definitely try to not get political or into any sort of thing. We try to keep it in Star Wars. We try to keep it fun and enjoyable. This is a space for us to vent, to enjoy ourselves, to talk about stuff that we love. It's an escape. It's a passion project. It is positivity. It's what we want it to be. So we did not appreciate getting an aggressive message for no reason. And even if you guys love something in particular in Star Wars, go ahead and love it. So the reason why we're taking so much time to talk about this stuff is because it is canon. We're talking about what is technically and isn't technically part of the story. So, for example, something that's part of the EU is that Luke Skywalker got married, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe not got married, but had a relationship with someone. So with a girl, and so the thing is that canon or isn't it? Well, I mean, it doesn't affect the story at all. Technically, it didn't happen, so you can't really consider it when you're watching episodes 7, 8, 9. When you're looking at how Luke Skywalker progressed throughout his time,
right? It's
not included. So that's why it's important. Why is this important? Because does it contribute or change or anything in a storyline of or a sequence of events? Well, if it does, then it counts. If it doesn't, then it counts, but in a different way. Okay, we're not saying it doesn't count. We're not saying that, oh no, you should never read Legends at all or EU or whatever. Absolutely not. Read it, talk about it, love it. We can talk about it for sure. But the thing is that there's so much canon to talk about. Exactly as Brian was saying, there's a lot of Star Wars canon. It's worth it to focus on the canon. Yeah, that's all I got to say. There's the bit of the ethics and the bit of why it's important to actually focus on canon, on what is and what isn't canon. It's important for us to define that.
Yeah. Oh, and we were accused in the email of basically crapping all over the EU. We've never done anything of the sort. I think the EU is a great pool to pull material from to bring into canon. And I would never crap all over that. So I think it's honest to God. I think it's a purist. This person's a purist.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would argue that actually so much of the EU that appeals to me personally more than other stuff. Last year, I was really, we did this thing where we put Luke Skywalker on trial.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see more of badass Luke. I wanted to see him, and I was really upset that he, went down the way he did in episode 7, episode 8, where he just left everything and, hid somewhere in solitude sort of thing. Whereas in EU, he's a freaking badass. He goes through stuff. He goes through trials. He does amazing adventures, missions, and things. Obviously, there is canon stuff like
right.
that. But in EU as well, there's way more of where that came from. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff in EU that I would love to go as well. So that we would never ever sort of.
Never. But that's all.
There's a lot of good content out there.
Oh yeah, but that's all I really wanted to say. I shouldn't say all because that was a mouthful. But we wanted to address that a little bit. But yeah, so let's move on to the mailbag questions of you guys that are tolerant of other people's opinions and love Star Wars as much as we do and want to see it.
A couple of cool questions.
Yeah, we have a couple of really good questions. So the first question this week comes from Mark Willis. And Mark sends in, hello, Canon Podcast crew. So great to hear you guys on the air again and talking about our favorite thing in the world. Thank you so much, Mark. It's awesome to have you as a listener. Mark asks, are Vader and Anakin the same person? Would like to hear your opinions. Thanks for the question. Usef, you're a villain guy. What's your opinion?
So because I'm a villain guy, I genuinely love Anakin's arc. And exactly what I'm saying here is Anakin's arc. So I think they are the same person. But I know that technically there's been a few interviews somewhere where Anakin technically is no longer Anakin when he turns into Darth Vader, because the Force affects him so much that Anakin becomes a memory within his mind. You know, when Darth Vader himself in Episode 6, when he speaks to Luke, and Luke, you know, when Luke presents himself to him, and then Darth Vader is like, "So you've accepted that I am your father. I have accepted that you were once Anakin Skywalker." And then he's like, "That name no longer means anything to me." See, and now this is where it started, right? This is where it started, where he shows you that he was one thing and is now another, and the actions that he, you know, up from Order 66 all the way through the process of really turning into Darth Vader, really earning the Emperor's, well, I mean, the Emperor never truly respected him.
Right.
But really earning the Emperor's rank, excuse me, the Sith rank alongside the Emperor, alongside Darth Sidious. This is a very important question, because it's so core to Star Wars and how Star Wars began and what's important about it, because of the huge drop that Anakin fell. And then Vader turns back to redeem himself, sort of, to restore balance to the Force when he takes out Darth Sidious to save Luke, and then he himself is sacrificed, and he dies, and he turns into a Force ghost. To me, I mean, see, this is the thing, right? In my interpretation, Anakin and Vader are the same damn person, and it is just so amazing to see this transformation. You know, he's fallen so hard, man. He's fallen so hard. And when you see the guy, what he goes through, anyone who is, you know, 1138, Nick, you know, he was just showing someone the films as well. And the comment when she saw the first 3 films, she was like, "It's my favorite film, Revenge of the Sith." It's
right.
just so sad. That's so emotional. That's such an emotional concept, right? And that is Star Wars. Star Wars isn't pew pew. It isn't just lightsabers and guns and stuff and starfighters and whatever and starships and things. Seriously, Star Wars is our favorite, and most of, you know, people's favorite book is Lost Stars, which is in essence a love story. Mm-hmm. And then Darth Vader and Anakin is genuinely someone being challenged to his core by fear of losing what he has, because he came from nothing, and all of a sudden he's given everything because he's so talented and he's so gifted. But he's so worried about keeping it all together that he ends up destroying it. What? It's so brilliant in itself. And the thing isn't just that I love a villain, so therefore I love Darth Vader. I love the guy that turned into a villain without even meaning to. He got corrupted by himself, and then by someone else, and then by himself, and then he didn't get corrupted, then he went back, and then he went somewhere else. Oh, no. It's just brilliant. I'm sorry, I was just fanboying over
No, you're good.
It's just... I love that. Love that.
I'm of the mentality that they are the same person still. And
right.
The reason I think that is, and the reason I feel that way, is Vader, no matter where you see him in the timeline, he's got cracks in his armor. Not literally, but he's got cracks in his armor where Anakin shines through. You know, you look at Rebels when he's fighting Ahsoka and she cuts his mask and you hear Ahsoka, you know, and it's Anakin turns around and she's like, Anakin, and it's his voice again, and he recognizes her, you know, and he has to stop and contemplate for a second. Is this really what I want to do? Even throughout the comics, there were a lot of times where Vader really didn't want to be Vader. You know, he was the victim in his own story. And, you know, even when you get into the comics between Empire and Jedi, yeah, Vader's kind of gone through this trial by the Emperor where the Emperor has basically scared him straight back to where he should be as the apprentice.
Well,
yeah, and so he's still trying to be I don't want to say be a father to Luke, but he's still trying to reach out to Luke, knowing that he's his son. Ever since, you know, the moment he finds out that Skywalker was the name of the guy that blew up the Death Star, when Boba Fett tells him that name in the comics, from that moment on, he's on a hunt for Skywalker. And it's because he wants to rule the galaxy as father and son. So he still, you can't say I killed Anakin Skywalker, but I'm your father. You know, so he instead of telling Luke, if Anakin Skywalker was truly dead in Vader's mind, then he shouldn't have said, you know, I am your father. He should have said Anakin Skywalker was your father and I was Anakin Skywalker. You know, it should have been something along those lines, not I am your father. If he was, honest to God, an entirely new being, then he wouldn't have said I am your father. So and he wouldn't have had that soft spot for Luke. No matter what, he wouldn't have had that soft spot for Luke.
That's a pretty cool take.
And even in the comics, yeah, and even in the comics when he's threatening Luke over the comms, TIE Fighter to X-Wing, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill all your friends, and I'm going to take everything that belongs to you. He still keeps referring to him as son. I'm going to take everything from you, son. Like everything, it's just over and over and over again. So I don't think he ever became two people. Yeah, he can say, you know, Anakin Skywalker was weak, I destroyed him, all he wants. Just like Obi-Wan can say, yeah, Luke was the chosen one, all he wants. That's his point of view. Vader may have his own point of view of, no, I purged everything from myself that was Anakin Skywalker. That name no longer has any meaning to me. He knows better.
Well, he wanted to believe that.
Yeah, he wanted to believe that. As much as Ben Solo wanted to believe that he was meant for the dark side. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think, honest to God, I think Vader had the same problem Ben Solo did of being, quote-unquote, seduced by the light side. I think there was always that tug back to the light, even on Vader. I don't think Vader was ever too far gone, to be completely honest.
Do you think one of the reasons that Ben Solo and Anakin or Kylo Ren and Darth Vader sort of hit back and then never fully reached their potential as their villain selves either, right? I genuinely think that was down to their masters, because we know this is true in Vader's sense, but their masters purposefully mistreating them, not just purposefully limiting them without them knowing,
holding them back,
mistreating them, but then mistreating them as well. So when Kylo Ren in Episode 8 looks at, you know, just before he smashes his helmet to pieces in the elevator, he looks at Snoke and he's like, I gave everything to you. And then Snoke, take that stupid thing off, you know, or whatever it is he says. But yeah, he just treats him. It's kind of like, maybe not a father figure, but maybe he's kind of like a master or a teacher or a boss who's asked everything of you, and then he still gives you shit and crap. Right. And then you're like, why am I not getting a single piece of motivation? I'm facing challenges here, motherfucker, you know? Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and then Vader, same stuff. So he then reverts back and he's like, no, because if he was to encourage this, because then Vader and Kylo Ren would be like, yeah, I'd shoot down the starship, and then I'd stab my father, and then I'd kill the rebels, and then I'd, you know, do so and so. You know what I mean? Like, right? Yeah, I just, that's another point. I think I would say that's why he still holds on to a piece of Anakin, because that's when he knows that that's a little bit of his core, and that's where he's from. Yeah. I think. And what I don't know if that's a conscious choice, but yeah. What else is cool between Kylo Ren and Vader? I know this wasn't the question, but there's a lot of parallels here that we can draw some conclusions from. Maybe draw some conclusions from. When you look at Vader, like he even told Luke at one point in Return of the Jedi, "It's too late for me." You know, like he was saying, "I want to turn back, but it's too late for me." And this is like, the way it has to be. That's a nice thought, right? That can't happen. And then when you look at Kylo Ren, you know, it took his father to save him. Just you know, and it's kind of the opposite, because for Vader it took his son to save him. For Kylo, it was his father to save him. And I don't care what anybody says about why Kylo turned back. It wasn't Rey Force healing him. It wasn't anything like that. It was Han Solo, because in The Force Awakens, Leia makes the comment, you know. Han makes the comment, if Luke couldn't reach him, what makes you think I could? And she said, Luke's a Jedi. You're his father. You're his father. And so I fully believe that it was Han that was the reason that he came back. And so, you know, the way Luke as the son saved his father, so Ben's father saved him as the son. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of a cool little parallel. And it did kind of, you know, like George Lucas says, it rhymes. You know, the stanzas always rhyme in these trilogies. So it was kind of a nice little parallel. But I think those two had the same conflict going inside of them between, do I want to be Ben Solo? Do I want to be Kylo Ren? Do I want to be Anakin Skywalker? Do I want to be Vader? You know, so I think they were the same person all the way through. And I think it was just a mental torment for Vader, to be completely honest. Because the more and more issues of comics we get,
the more and more character building, believe it or not, that we get on Vader, like we need any more character development on Vader, but we're getting more and more, and he's going through more and more shit that the Emperor's putting him through, and you're like, Jesus, I get it now. Like, I get why he's such an asshole. So I think they were the same person. But it's an interesting question. It's a really good question, because on the surface you want to say, no, they're two separate people, but when you really start to dive into it, it could go either way, you know. So
I think some people actually might think, well, on the surface they're the same person. He just turned bad, then turned good. But I don't. But people need to understand there's a huge debate here, because the other side of the debate here, which would say no, they are different, is because technically Vader would have sort of, as you just said, purged or tried to purge most of Anakin out of him.
Right.
So he's doing things that Anakin would never have done. He's committed to being Vader. He's committed to killing people, soldiers that are fighting for their freedom. Technically, who he was upholding freedom on every planet he went to.
Yeah.
He was bastion of truth and goodness, and he was leading his clone troopers. You know, they loved him because he would sacrifice himself. He'd jump into the line in front of them, even though they're clones, so technically they don't matter as much, you know, cannon fodder and whatever. No, he wouldn't be like that. No,
yeah, they were
soldiers.
people.
They're my brothers in arms.
Yeah.
They were people. They're my brothers in arms. Even better than just people. You know, I know these people. I train with them. They made me better. Therefore, I have to stand with them.
Right.
And well, I loved him and Ahsoka so much. Yeah.
Hell, even in episode 3.
By the way. Yeah, hell, even in episode 3.
Even in episode 3, after he murks all of the Separatist leaders, he's standing out on this balcony on Mustafar, and as he turns his head, you can see the tear running down his face.
Oh, that was
you know,
it.
And
so if you haven't seen this part, if you don't remember it, you need to watch this, because it's so good. Because he looks down at the lava, and then he looks up at the sun, that little bit of light. As soon as he sees a little bit of light, he turns and he can't bear to look at the light.
Yeah.
Oh goodness me, I love that scene. And then everything, that whole sequence with the music, that is, I swear, like those moments, those few minutes, from all the way up, from Anakin walking up those stairs into the Jedi Temple, all the way to that moment when he looks up at the light on Mustafar planet, and he's just sort of looking back down again because he can't bear to look at it, and tear strokes down his eyes. That is probably a culmination of Star Wars for me.
Oh yeah,
in one sort of continuation.
Yeah,
it is so full of passion. It's so full of storytelling. You have everything you need to know in that one sequence, because in between that, Obi-Wan is also talking to Padme, I think, and then the music, and then what he's doing, and then going in there. God, that is just so cool.
It's so good, yeah. So,
oh, by the way, so there was this novel, right? So who did the novelization for episode 3? Brian, do you remember?
It was. Oh man, it was something
gruesome,
Stover.
Right?
Matthew Stover.
Matthew Stover,
yeah.
Right. So this guy has a reputation for being a gruesome. I had no idea about this, so I stumbled across this a few days ago. Matthew Stover was doing online interviews and stuff a few years back on YouTube, and apparently he was talking about, like, he has like a gruesome reputation, like almost as bad as George R. R. Martin for some reason. So I was like, why is that? So apparently one of the things, but this is just a little snippet of some of the things he says, because now I have to buy this thing and read it, which I was going to do anyway, but I was doing it in steps because I'm really behind on these books. The moment when he goes up the steps, Matthew Stover explains that he talked to George Lucas about this, and George Lucas gave him free reign to do whatever he wanted, as long as it did not contradict anything in the films, and not to expand too much, so that it needed that it created a gap in the films, sort of thing, where, I wish we would have explained that a little bit more in the film, because there's so much in the books, sort of thing. Like, for example, in Harry Potter, in the books, Voldemort, there's a hex or a curse put on anybody who uses the word Voldemort, and then immediately snatchers will show up in your area, because that's a curse where, like, we'll
it's
know
taboo.
people who defy Voldemort. Yeah. So you refer to him as he who must not be named. That's part of the sanctity of it, right? So we want to keep him that evil, where if you even use if you even use his name, so that was never explained in the films.
Yeah.
Right. So he didn't want the same thing happening in his books. Obviously, he didn't. Harry Potter hadn't even come out yet. The films, at least, in that late on, at least. But yeah, so the thing is that he went up the steps, Anakin, and Matthew Stover has always said that he said that he always imagined there being a temple guard at the gates, like there wouldn't just be zero security.
Right.
Sure, they'd be lax security, but there'd still be security. There'd be a gatekeeper, and that sounds so cool, right? So it makes sense when you think about it that way. And then what happens apparently is, Anakin shows up at the door. The gatekeeper opens the gates or the door to see Anakin there, but then all of a sudden doesn't see anything because Anakin opens his lightsaber turns on his lightsaber through the gatekeeper's head.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just so gruesome. That is just so heavy.
Yeah, it's
I'm
insane.
sorry I went off on this tangent.
No, and it's not just the gruesome.
Example of how Matthew Stover writes, by the way.
It's not just the gruesomeness of that book either. They added a lot of deleted scenes and stuff in there. Matter of fact, I've got a screenshot of my favorite quote from that book. Let me pull it up on my phone real quick because I took a screenshot of it the other day, and I adore it. Do I still have it? I thought I had it. I do. Here it is. So there was a scene that was deleted, and I think we talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago when we were talking about deleted scenes. There's a scene in episode 3 where Anakin realizes Obi-Wan had come to visit Padme before he got there. And he's like, Obi-Wan was here, wasn't he? And she's like, yeah, he's worried about you and blah, 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 whatever. So that scene where he comes to talk to Padme is in the book. And in the book, and I've got the quote right here from the book,
right?
The excerpt. This is what Obi-Wan told Padme during that meeting. He said, I'm not blind, Padme, though I have tried to be for Anakin's sake and for yours. Anakin has loved you since the day you met in that horrible junk shop on Tatooine. He's never even tried to hide it, though we do not speak of it. We pretend that I don't know. And I was happy to because it made him happy. You made him happy when nothing else ever truly could. Excuse my language, why the fuck is that not in the movie?
Exactly.
Why is that scene not canon? That scene's not canon. Why is that scene not freaking canon? That's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read in Star Wars.
That's an amazing. That explains so much.
Oh, it does.
The relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah. So, and that kind of love between a brother and between Obi-Wan and Anakin like that. No, I don't care how far Anakin went to the dark side. He was always Anakin as Vader. He never truly went. I guarantee it. So, anyway, we kind of went off on a tangent a little bit there.
Yeah. No. I mean, seriously, Obi-Wan and Anakin, that is genuinely a huge part of what I want to see because it's not simply as it was in Episode 4. Back when it all started, when Anakin, when Vader faces Obi-Wan, he's like, "When we last met, you were the master. Now I am the master," sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not just that. There's so much more.
It's not cut and dry anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and that scene as well, like that last scene when Obi-Wan and Anakin bid each other farewell. Technically, that is the last time Obi-Wan sees Anakin as Anakin.
Yeah.
Next time he sees him, he's Darth Vader.
He's Vader.
I know they're the same person. I just said he's the same person. I'm just saying that he's now turned into this thing,
right?
Which he wasn't. Anakin was not on a trajectory to be a Sith Lord, not one bit. He was just trying to find a solution. That's my take on this. He was just he was just trying to fix his insecurities. He was just trying to see his life sort of be happy and protect the one he loves.
Yep.
And then Sidious did his thing, and that moment of confusion, and then taking on Mace Windu and stuff. Oh, that was just amazing.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So.
That sort of transformation and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. We hope in a tangent, roundabout kind of way, Mark, we answered your question. So we kind of.
I almost forgot there was a question.
Yeah, I know. We went off the rails there a little bit, but it's fine because anytime we get to talk about Star Wars and really deep stuff like this, I absolutely love it. So, but that should say something, Mark. Your question was very thought provoking. So that was a very good question. Really happy to have had that on the show. Thanks for sending it in, man. And we got one more question we're going to do this episode before we sign off, and it's from Jenny Stromberg. And Jenny writes in and says, in the Book of Boba Fett, the armorer states that the Beskar spear is a danger to Mandalorians and the metal should only be used for armor. Why can't Mandalorians use Beskar to create weapons? Love your content and may the Force be with you. Thanks for the question, Jenny.
Very good question.
This is an interesting question because in that exact same scene, that line that she says is contradicted. He says, then forge it into armor. Then why do we have a lightsaber that's made out of Beskar?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have whistling birds in the gauntlets that You know,
and made out of Beskar.
Made out of Beskar. And then if you want to say, well, that's just ammunition, that's cool, but his gauntlet's made out of Beskar, and it's basically a gun. You know, so yeah, I don't get where that distinction, or not where that distinction,
no, you're absolutely
but where
right.
that
That's
idea
right.
comes from. I don't know why she
word
would
for
be
word exactly what she says. Like
yeah.
The forgery. She, when he goes in Book of Boba Fett episode 5, I've got the episode right now, and I pulled it up specifically because of this, because this was just so cool to read as a question, because I don't have an answer to this actually. Because
I don't either.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, right, that the first, the lightsaber was forged many, many eons ago by Tar Vizsla, who was both a Jedi and a Mandalorian.
Right.
And Mandalorian, as we know, isn't a race; it's a creed.
It's a creed, right?
At least to them, right? So there is a planet, Mandalore, and technically you could become a citizen of this planet or you're not, and so on. But being a Mandalorian is more about a creed. It's more about being. It's like being Spartan. If you go to Sparta and you become Spartan, then you are of this creed and you fight for something special. You fight for something unique. It's also being part of a nation, a part of a brotherhood and everything, but it's also being part of a creed, especially now that they are technically homeless. They're technically without a home, without a planet, etc. And these guys in particular are real extra purists, fanatics for their creed. Remember when he met Bo-Katan, and he was so excited, right, to see in Mandalorian season 2, right?
Yeah.
First few episodes of season 2, when he met Bo-Katan and the 2 other Mandalorians that were there alongside, whether he was just so excited to see their armor, and we were like, what? Even more Mandalorians showing up, and they've got cool colored armor and stuff. But then they're like, oh, he's one of them. Oh my goodness, fanatics. And then, so they might have a different take on things. That's the only thing that I can think of. That these guys are so fanatic, they've got their own sort of thing. They've got their own sort of view about what should or shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was, by the way, this scene when he was melting down the spear, I was heartbroken watching.
Oh
that
yeah,
that was an amazing weapon. It was so cool. The fact that you can use it to deflect the darksaber, that in itself was brilliant. Obviously not for long, because we saw it turn red and then almost turn blue, and then was almost
started to get hot,
or melt or something. Yeah, and that's how amazing the darksaber is. And then the darksaber's hilt is made of a Beskar quality, which is unlike anything they've ever seen before, because it was forged eons ago on Mandalore with the best sort of forgeries and everything. But yes, there is no particular reason so far, not in comics, not in backup, because we don't have too much content on Mandalore and Mandalorians. We've got some, just not enough,
right,
to explain this point. And the best I can come up with is just that they are, because these guys are fanatics, they just think that there's this particular way of handling Beskar, and it's to not use weapons. I mean, if I was them and I had Beskar, I'd freaking make it all the time, everywhere.
For me, it's confusing though, because this same armor is the one that made the whistling birds for Din Djarin, and so I'm confused as
that's a weapon.
It's a weapon, yeah. It harms people, and if they're made of Beskar, that means they could penetrate Beskar armor the same as that spear could. And she made the comment, just its existence endangers all Mandalorians. Well, so do the whistling birds. So does the darksaber, So its
mere existence puts Mandalorians at risk.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? Because it can pierce Beskar? Okay, so can whistling birds.
So
you have those.
Birds. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's I don't have an answer for it. I think, honest to God, it's a plot
makes
point.
The argument, right, that it can block a lightsaber. I used it to defeat Moff Gideon.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think what she said was basically just a plot device to have a reason to melt the spear down into armor for Grogu. Yeah, I think that's all it was. So. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever that the armorer would say that. I mean, it's...
Sheesh, these fanatics.
It doesn't. Yeah, I know. And actually, they're Death Watch, so but it's. I don't. Like I said, I don't have an answer. It's a good question, and I actually honestly didn't pick up on that until I read this question today, and I was like, well, damn, no, you got a point, because there are weapons made out of Beskar.
I think we talked about it just a little bit, just because we were all upset to see the spear go away. But then we were obviously talking more about the armor and whether or not we're going to get to see Grogu wear the armor and so on. But yeah, so I think that was the thing there.
Yeah,
the chainmail that he got made for him.
So I don't think it's that Mandalorians can't make armor out of or weapons out of Beskar. I think it's just that it was just a plot device so that we could get the armor for Grogu. I think that's all it was. So, and I don't think, honest to God, even with Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian stuff, I don't think a lot of thought went into some of this stuff. Me personally, but I think it was just an oopsie. Didn't mean to say that. Didn't think of that, So I think that's all it is. So, you got anything else to add, Usef, before we sign off? We've been going for like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. So far, I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a clear-cut answer for that, but that's probably because there isn't any clear-cut answer for that. And the story of Mandalorian itself is going to be awesome. Like, I think we'll be getting, definitely think because of the show, The Mandalorian, we'll be getting a lot more. Because this Darksaber is going to take us somewhere. And I cannot wait to see him go back to the planet Mandalore. And because he's hell-bent on facing trials, right?
Yeah.
And if Grogu is actually a foundling, and he's going to be Mandalorian technically as well. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I can't wait to keep watching Mandalorian and see what's up. But it is going to come out end of this year, hopefully, like the next season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then Book of Boba Fett probably relaying after that. And Ahsoka, when is Ahsoka supposed to come out again?
I think next year.
March? Yeah, probably around next year.
Yeah, I think it's March. Yeah, something like that. It'll be next year's Obi-Wan, like it is. Like Obi-Wan is this year.
Yeah,
we'll have Ahsoka
like
next
Obi-Wan
year.
is this year. Yeah, and we'll probably get him like in a sequence where it's Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Boba Fett,
That'd be
or
nice.
Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, something like that.
That'd be nice. A lot to be excited for with Star Wars.
A lot to be excited for, especially because these are kind of the heroes of the shows right now.
Yeah, and of the Filoni-verse, if you want to call it that, the Mando-verse, or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, because this era, this is a new phase. I mean, it's brilliant. But then the Filoni-verse, yeah.
I like to call it that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, yeah, because this is a new Filoni era.
Yeah, it is. So, all right, well, if there's nothing else, I think that'll do it for this episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. Don't forget, guys, we're here every week talking about our favorite thing in the world on Anchor.fm. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and several other platforms other than those. Be sure.
We might be live streaming.
I was going to bring that up. We have talked about, we've thrown around the idea. So what happened was last night when I was doing 1138 Gaming, somebody had the suggestion that because Usef is in Cairo, Egypt, and I'm in South Central Kansas, we have a huge time difference between us. This is our window to record each week is on Thursday nights. And so the idea was broached that instead of recording and then uploading, why don't we just live stream on Thursday nights and have the live chat and everything like that going? Because it's basically us sitting here. I don't do any editing on our podcast at all. I sit down, record it, and then I upload it. Like, that's all there is to it. So there's no reason we couldn't live stream this and then have the live chat kind of be an aspect of it too. So Usef and I are going to sit down. I don't know if we're going to start it next week. But maybe the week after we'll start doing live streaming on Thursday nights for the podcast. So the podcast will be moving from Saturday nights at 7 to Thursday nights at probably 6:30 or 7, whatever works best for Usef. We'll sit down and hammer all that out. But then that way,
so they'll still be recorded as podcasts.
Oh yeah, we'll still record it, and yeah.
Hopefully, if you're free, guys, we'd love you to join in. When we'll try to announce it on all social media before then, of course.
And then also, because we'll be moving that, it'll open up Saturday nights for us to do our live stream of 1138 Talk Radio. So I don't want to be premiering a podcast episode on Saturday night at 7 and then going live at 7 too, and everybody has to decide which one to watch. You know what I mean? So I think that's what we're going to end up doing. We're going to do a little bit of a shuffle, but we'll let you guys know next week. We'll talk about it throughout the next week and kind of come up with a game plan for it. And I think we're going to start that not tonight for us, Thursday, but I think 2 weeks from tonight. So let us know in between now and then over the next week. Send us an email at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com or through the website. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are on a live stream if you guys are interested in something like that. I'm glad you brought that up, Usef, before we signed off for the night. So anyway, yeah. So guys, make sure to also check out 1138productions.com. The Star Wars Canon Podcast is on that website. The Marvel Cast is on that website. And coming very soon will be 1138 Talk Radio. I'm really excited about 1138 Talk Radio because then we're not just hands tied to Star Wars. We can talk about anything. I mean, whatever we want to talk about. These tangents we go off on where we start talking about other stuff, we can do that all we want, so I'm really looking forward to that. If you guys like our content and you want to support us, please check us out on patreon.com/1138 productions and show some love there. There's also some exclusive content there that you'll have access to as a thank you. All of those links can be found in the description of this show on whichever platform you are listening in on. And until next week, guys, this is Brian and Usef signing off. Keep it civil, and may the Force be with you guys.
May the Force be with you.